The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
And I think in their heart of hearts, they would very, very much like Nevada, California, and Arizona to, take care of this problem all by ourselves and not have to make any contributions.
Tonight on Politics Now, rising tension. Nevada's chief negotiator on water tries to hammer out a new rights agreement on the Colorado River. Plus, lower enrollment and less money. CCSD's superintendent on adjusting to a smaller than expected budget. And investigating ethics. The formal complaint against Attorney General Aaron Ford moves forward.
You're watching Politics Now with John Langler on 8 News Now.
Thank you very much for joining us. A major Supreme Court loss for President Donald Trump. Friday morning, justices rejected his emergency tariff policy. It was a 6-3 ruling. Justices determined tariffs are a tax, and the power to tax rests with Congress. Early estimates suggest White House tariffs have brought in about $287 billion. This ruling did not address whether companies who have been paying those tariffs will get their money back. This applied to those reciprocal tariffs that were imposed by the president as an emergency order. Still more to dissect on that in the weeks ahead. Meanwhile, tonight, the partial federal government shutdown is still in place. There's been no movement on a package to fund Homeland Security. Democrats refuse to approve any bill without reforms to immigration enforcement. Republicans are reluctant to make major changes. This week, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said he wants to make a deal. The White House calls his proposal, quote, unserious.
We've not seen any high-level effort coming from the president or from the House or Senate Republican leaders.
We've been engaged in good faith negotiations with the Democrats.
The Homeland Security shutdown affects TSA, FEMA, and the Coast Guard. ICE, though, remains funded for the time being through the president's budget passed last summer. The future of Colorado River water rights is now in the hands of the federal government. After years of debate, 7 states along the river have failed to come up with a new agreement. The current compact runs out at the end of September. A public comment period, though, is now open that gives you a chance to chime in on the federal government's draft proposal. Nevada's chief negotiator is Southern Nevada Water Authority General Manager John Ensminger. He spoke with 8 News Now investigator Vanessa Murphy.
What would you say are the main reasons for failing to come to a deal?
I would say the main reasons we haven't reached an agreement yet are the lower division states, which are California, Arizona, and Nevada, feel that the 4 upper division states need to put more water conservation on the table for the legal waivers they are seeking. And there's other deal points, obviously, but I think that's the major sticking point.
And as far as the upper basin states, can you explain exactly what they want in a nutshell?
Well, I would say, and for your viewers, the upper basin states are, Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, and New Mexico. And I think in their heart of hearts, they would very, very much like Nevada, California, and Arizona to, take care of this problem all by ourselves and not have to make any contributions.
When you communicate with their representatives, how tense does that get?
The negotiations can be very tense. I mean, we're talking about the water supply for 40 million Americans, 5 million acres of irrigated ag, 30 Native American tribes. So things get tense. But these are also people, in some cases, that I've worked with for a couple of decades, and there's personal relationships there. And there's very seldom yelling or the raising of voices, but it's a high stakes deal.
Do you think that there would be a consideration of what Nevada does as far as our requirements here for residents?
I absolutely think all of those 6 states and the federal government recognize that Nevada has literally led the world in urban water conservation. They know that, and I absolutely believe it will be taken into account, in a federal decision, and I'm completely certain that if this thing actually ended up in a court, that a court would look at that and say, there's one state that spent 25 years getting ready for this. I still believe there's a negotiated path here, and I put the odds at 70-75% we can get a negotiation done, but if we don't, then the odds of someone filing a lawsuit are the remaining probabilities.
Should Nevada residents be concerned that there will be mandatory cuts on water usage more than what we have in place now, as far as like incentives to get rid of grass and that sort of thing?
I think, for the residents of Southern Nevada, what they need to know is we're the most water secure city in the desert Southwest. We have spent $1.5 billion on infrastructure to make sure we can deliver water to our community at a level of Lake Mead where it's physically impossible to deliver water downstream to Arizona and California. Because we've had leading water conservation for the last 25 years, we are prepared to weather what I think would be any reasonable reductions to our allocation from the federal government.
A decision from the federal government on water rights will probably come later this year. We do have a link for you to give comment on the federal government's draft proposal over at 8newsnow.com. This week, the State Ethics Commission advanced a complaint against Attorney General Aaron Ford. It focuses on travel paid for by third parties and fundraising on social media. 8 News Now reporter Joshua Piguero has the story.
The first part of the ethics complaint centers on luxury international trips paid for by a group called the Attorney General Alliance. Those trips were to South Africa, South Korea, Poland, Israel, Macau, Singapore, and Tulum, Mexico. The complaint asks whether the group and others at the junkets influenced Ford in his role as Attorney General with those trips. It cites $35,000 worth of trips in 2023 and 2024. Our previous reporting shows those trips continued over a period of 4 years, totaling about $110,000. Ford previously told us, quote, "Those bipartisan groups bring states' attorneys general together to tackle challenges that go beyond state lines." The social media aspect of the complaint includes Ford posting links for his ActBlue fundraising account for his campaign for governor on his official AG account on Twitter X. The complaint includes hundreds of instances of that. In total, the complaint includes 18 potential violations of ethics law. Ford is the Democratic candidate for governor against incumbent Republican Governor Joe Lombardo.
They call him High-Flying Aaron Ford.
A PAC associated with Lombardo already running ads focusing on the travel.
And that was Joshua Piguero reporting. Ford can, of course, respond to the complaint. The Ethics Commission will set a time for that hearing. This week, more legal wrangling between Nevada gaming regulators and the unregulated prediction market, Kalshi. This week, a U.S. appeals court sided with Nevada regulators, keeping Kalshi from operating here without a license. Kalshi is trying to get around Nevada gaming control by calling them sports betting contracts. Also entering the conversation, though, the Federal Commodity Futures Trading Commission. It says it should regulate Kalshi. The matter could go to the U.S. Supreme Court. This week, I spoke with Florida gaming attorney Daniel Wallach.
First and foremost, what's the difference in your legal viewpoint between something like Kalshi and just regulated sports or other kinds of gambling that we already have in Nevada?
Well, the regulated sports gambling in Nevada has a panoply of consumer protections, responsible gaming safeguards, sports integrity monitoring requirements. It's the most heavily regulated industry in the country, and Nevada is at the vanguard of sports gambling and gambling regulation generally. By contrast, the prediction market platforms, which offer a significantly or substantially similar product, I mean, they're offering prop bets and parlays and how many points will two teams score within a period. They're offering full-on sports gambling, but they lack the mandated by law consumer protections relating to gambling, and there are absolutely no sports-specific integrity protections. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission, which is the agency overseeing all these derivatives contracts, they don't have any rules designed to deal with sporting events. They don't have any problem gambling or addictive gambling protocols. Their mission has historically been to regulate the futures and derivatives markets, commodities, wheat, corn. They are ill-equipped to regulate gambling, much less sports betting, which is a subset of gambling and is a very specific species of gambling that has a unique set of regulatory issues that can only be dealt with and addressed, and have only been addressed at the state level.
Companies like Kalshi say, you mentioned the federal regulations or the federal regulators, but if you're saying that they have been eviscerated and there's no state regulations, specifically here in Nevada, what can you do? Is this the kind of thing where you can sort of put the proverbial genie back in the bottle?
Yeah, because courts are going to have the final word, or Congress will have the final word. Kalshi's ability to operate sports gaming, which is really right now like 85% of their prediction markets. People aren't going to Kalshi to wager on the weather or rain or wheat or corn. Kalshi isn't sending push notifications to customers throughout the country, urging them to bet on normal mainline prediction markets surrounding surrounding weather and commodities. They're sending push notifications on sports betting. That's 85% of their practice, and they've been flouting the CFTC regulations. There's a rule directly on point, 40.11A1. It's CFTC regulation 40.11A1, which sets forth a prohibition, an actual prohibition against the listing or clearing of any contracts involving, relating to, or referencing gaming.
The appeals court issue its ruling on this, and it seems to be setting up this eventual legal battle with the CFTC and the federal regulator. That's what Kalshi, I would imagine, wants. But in that arena, that legal arena, I get the feeling I know what you're going to say about this, but can the federal government make a compelling argument that it has the capability, has the desire to regulate this market? That seems to be what they're leaning on, whereas the states are like, we need to do this, specifically Nevada.
Well, desire and capability are two entirely different things. I could have the desire to regulate sports gambling all by myself, but I'm ill-equipped to do so. I can talk about it. The CFTC is ill-equipped to regulate sports betting at the current time with their staff slashed by at least 20% over last year. Only one commissioner, no regulations designed to deal with sports betting, no enforcement attorneys. It is an empty shell. And the false bravado of CFTC Chairman Mike Seelig to say, come on, we'll see you in court. I think that's a hollow and empty promise, because the CFTC was never given the authority by Congress to regulate in the field of sports gambling.
Wallach credits Nevada Gaming Control for leading the fight to regulate Kalshi. We'll see where the legal fight goes from here. Next on Politics Now, dealing with a smaller budget. We'll speak with CCSD's superintendent about losing students but paying teachers.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
Concerning words from Nevada school superintendents. We're bleeding money, they say. This week they told state lawmakers the mix of a student population drop and mandated teacher raises are kind of putting them in a bind. 8 News Now education reporter Joshua Piguero is back and digs into the latest financial issues hitting CCSD.
My graduating class last year was 24,000 children with a kindergarten class of 17,000 children. That is what is projected already for this fall as well. So 5,000 in 1 year, another 5,000 in another year. That's 10,000 students over 2 years.
With the loss in students comes a loss in money for the Clark County School District. Superintendent Joan Ebert blames a decline in birth rates and an increase in costs. She was asked by lawmakers what needs to change.
The main thing we can do is to increase the per pupil funding, is what you're saying.
Yes, that's in any other state that you look at. They receive much more funding, which then they can drive their class sizes down.
CCSD wasn't the only district dealing with financial issues. Leaders for Elko and Douglas counties talked about how fewer students has led to fewer dollars, leading to budget cuts.
We actually see ourselves more and having to figure out an $11 million problem in Elko County, and which is pretty challenging.
And since it's funded per student for every district in Nevada, we've lost out on over $5 million in revenue because of the loss of enrollment.
Washoe County's Superintendent Mike Mathers revealed the district laid off 48 central office jobs just to plug a $15 million projected budget deficit.
If our per pupil amount is not tracking with inflation, we have to pay our employees a livable wage and offer cost of living adjustments, as well as funding step increases in health insurance.
CCSD says about 1,200 employees will be surplused because of a projected deficit. This means those employees will lose their current position, but they'll still have jobs. After that hearing, Joshua had this in-depth conversation about CCSD's finances with Superintendent Ebert.
Hearing from people like Douglas County, Elko County, Washoe County, you're experiencing at CCSD, the financial troubles that they're having with low enrollment. What does that tell you?
So across the entire state of Nevada, we are seeing lower enrollment. Statewide, over the last 5 years, it's 20,000 students. And we predict that will be the same going forward. People just aren't having as many children. So it's incumbent upon us right now as a school district to look at making sure our resources are going to the right place, the classroom where children can succeed. And then 2, tracking that data moving forward and working with the legislature. So number 1, making sure that we're looking at our resources, using them appropriately. Number 2, tracking the data, student enrollment, so that we don't overhire, don't want to be in that position. We want all of our staff members to stay with us. They're doing an amazing job. And then number 3 is working with the legislature that as school districts, you mentioned Douglas, they have had the steepest decline.
You are seeing certain pockets of Clark County.
Yes, Southern Nevada, we are very unique. So we still have the outer ring. We have lots of growth, Northwest, Southwest, Northeast, all of those components. So our demography, we will be building a school out in that direction. I want you to come to the March 4th meeting where we'll be discussing the next round of buildings and trading up buildings, making sure that our kids are in wonderful learning spaces. But that is what is unique about the Clark County School District. 8,000 square miles, urban, suburban, rural. There's no other school district in the nation that is like ours. And so yes, on the outskirts we're growing. In the urban core we are not growing. And so we'll be tracking all of that information and making decisions and moving forward.
And then what can you tell me about the IFC meeting tomorrow, about the $661 million loan or advancement?
We're really excited about the IFC meeting. We have put forth the request, which the legislature moved forward during just about a year ago, additional pay for teachers that are in high needs positions in our Title I schools. So our special education teachers, our math teachers, our English teachers will all be receiving an additional $5,000 per year. It does need to be approved by the IFC. We had to work with the Department of Education to turn in the application, which we did. Now they've processed it and it will be in front of the legislators to vote on, and then we'll be able to start allocating those funds out to our teachers.
The Interim Finance Committee did, as you know, approve that spending. Staff will get to get those raises very soon. Now, at the same Interim Finance Committee meeting, Nevada state employees raised concerns about their insurance premiums. They're expected to nearly double next year. Union members are asking state lawmakers to step in. The Public Employee Benefits Program administers insurance plans. It says it has to increase premiums as much as 84% next year because of a budget shortfall. The speakers at the meeting also asked for an audit just to try and see how that budget shortfall developed. Next here on Politics Now, a primary challenge. A Democratic state lawmaker facing a new challenge for his Senate seat. We'll explore that coming up on Politics Now.
You're watching Politics Now.
A new candidate's jumped into the race for Henderson City Council Ward 3. This week, Democratic lobbyist Jennifer Atlas entered the race. Atlas lost a race for state Senate in 2024. As you see there, Annette Dawson Owens is also running for that seat. She is the chair of Clark County's Republican Party. City council seats in Nevada are nonpartisan. Incumbent Carrie Cox, she's running to keep her seat. She's also facing criminal charges right now for illegally recording a colleague's conversation, charges she denies. North Las Vegas City Councilman Isaac Barone's looking for a new position. He's running for State Senate, District 2. The Democrat hopes to unseat incumbent Democrat Edgar Flores. Flores is running despite a recent drunk driving case. He took a plea deal for a reduced charge in that. Flores recently lost support from local unions for opposing the failed film tax credit expansion bill. So far, no Republicans have entered that race. You could get a larger tax refund from the IRS this year. The White House says that's because of changes approved by Congress and signed by President Trump. It's a talking point for both parties heading into the midterm elections. Republicans called the refunds a big success. Democrats who voted against it still criticize them.
Tax filing season is no one's favorite season. But thanks to the working families' tax cuts, things are looking up this year.
It was beautiful if you're a billionaire, you got permanent tax cuts, but it cut deeply into healthcare programs, cut into food and nutrition programs.
Among the changes, the no tax on tips measure. It allows for a deduction of up to $25,000. No tax on overtime allows for a deduction of up to $12,500 per taxpayer. There's an additional $6,000 deduction for seniors on Social Security. We're back after this.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
You may have noticed Southern Nevada saw a fair dose of wind and rain this week, but that is nothing compared to what Northern Nevada has been dealing with. Heavy snow forced some state offices in Carson City to close early on Wednesday and Thursday. They delayed the openings in other places. Schools up in Reno and Sparks also took the day off for the storms. It's been bad up there. That'll do it for us this week here on Politics Now. We're back next week. Thanks for watching. Take care.